Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 462 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asked to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. You know, one thing that people always ask is, does a current team know the history of the team? If you're on a mean win streak, if you're on a mean losing streak, or if you're on a historic pace, a lot of people ask, does the team know? Does the team understand? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes. In this case, what we're talking about is Game 1 of the WNBA Finals. The Minnesota Lynx beat the New York Liberty 95-93. And if you watch this game, nothing about the first, second, or maybe even the third quarter would have made you think that today we would be talking about the New York Liberty being down 0-1 in the WNBA Finals. They were in complete control. I think at one point they were up by 18 points. And the start of my show it brings us here. Going into, first and foremost, actually, let me say this. First and foremost, the New York Liberty have never won a WNBA Finals. They're one of a few teams in the WNBA that has never captured a WNBA championship. And the history doesn't come in when we talk about not having it. Everyone knows if your team has one and if your team doesn't. Where the history comes in is how they have historically collapsed in a lot of the WNBA finals they have been in. Remember, they lost on their home. In fact, let me widen out this browser. Going into game 1 of this series, I believe that the New York Liberty was 0-5 in game 1s of the WNBA Finals. Let's not get it confused, and let's not get it twisted. We're not making any grand changes, grand assumptions off of one game. It's just one game. And we've seen on several occasions a team lose game 1 and ultimately come back and win the series. So I'm not saying that the New York Liberty are essentially done. I'm not saying that because the New York Liberty didn't win game 1, you can just wrap up the WNBA Finals. Let's also not forget that this is sort of a even though you don't want to paint it this way for ratings, this is sort of a David versus Goliath type matchup. That's why when we were watching the playoffs, a lot of people said that the WNBA Finals was essentially the rematch from last year, the Vegas Aces going against the New York Liberty. Both of those teams matched up perfectly when you look at the roster, and of course, it was the rematch to last year. And I know I went on a limb and picked the Minnesota Lynx to win, but it would be a Herculean effort if they win. I mean, the New York Liberty is the most stacked team in basketball when we talk about the WNBA. They have former MVPs. They have scoring champs. They have everything that you could ask for. But history, it's how do I say it? You ever wonder if a football team that is on the brink of history in the worst way. If they know, they do. That's why they usually, when you see them, they play a little tighter. They don't play the best. It's a psychological thing. For people that still don't understand and still don't know, football, sports in general, is more mental than physical. Yes, you have to be a physically dominant individual to play a sport, but it's more mental. There's so much stuff you have to remember, you have to calculate, you have to process in the moment. Sports is much more a mental realm than it is a physical. And I'm sure there was a point. Not saying that this is the reason why they lost, but I'm sure there was a point when the New York Liberty were up. And you see how the Vegas Aces had a chance to come back and win. And you see how let's just be honest about the New York Liberty. Yes, they are one of the most stacked teams, if not the most stacked team in the WNBA in basketball. Their depth and their talent is the main reason why they find themselves in the WNBA Finals. However, one thing that one thing that the New York Liberty does that probably will frustrate not only fans but the team is they have a weird tendency of allowing teams to linger. They have a weird tendency of allowing teams to stay in the fight. They don't usually, for some reason, a lot of times they don't have that death blow. Now, when they do, they do. But you saw that in the Vegas Aces Liberty series. Again, the Aces, the Liberty gave them every opportunity to come back. They just weren't able to seize it. And you would think in the WNBA Finals, an 18-point lead would be insurmountable, seeing as though only one team has ever come back from that in WNBA history in the finals. But when you have Courtney Williams, when you have Kayla McBride, when you have Nafisa Collier all combining for 66 points, that's tough. And Courtney Williams having one of the best fourth quarters we've seen or most important fourth quarters we've seen in WNBA history, hitting a huge 4-point play. You know what's crazy about this game? I was watching, I'm like, yo, if you had any question if this was if basketball, if sports in general was a mental game, watch this game. Obviously, talent was spewing throughout the court, but if you look at the end of the fourth quarter and you look at the end of overtime, or overtime in general, it was the mental mistakes that honestly could have buried both teams. Whether you talk about turnovers that were rushing, bad fouls, terrible unforced turnovers. That's mental. I'm not gonna disrespect these young ladies. These are basketball players. They know they're playing for the ultimate goal. So they know what they have to do. So I'm not gonna say they're dumb or anything. But what I'm saying is pressure sometimes judges your mental. And now as we sit here, history is not on the New York Liberty side. I know I picked the Minnesota Lynx to win. And I'm not saying they can't. But the last 6 WNBA Finals winners won game 1. And shouts out to the Minnesota Lynx for winning game 1. And I think that the best part about it is, and if you had, this game showed you the best of the Minnesota Lynx. And the fact of, this is why they're here. This is why they won the Commissioner's Cup. This is why they were able to overcome the Connecticut Sun, who a lot of people had beating them in the semifinals. And this is why now they're up 1-0 in the WNBA Finals. It's while you have Napheesa Collier, I think that's kind of where the Vegas Aces kind of went wrong at this year. The Vegas Aces, obviously, their whole identity is the greatness of A'ja Wilson. What we've saw in the previous 2 years is, while the gap between A'ja Wilson and her teammates was wide as far as talent, Kelsey Gray is still great. Chelsea Plum is still Kelsey Plum is still great. Jackie Young is still great. Like, you still had a nucleus of talent. That talent outside of A'ja Wilson, because obviously we know she had the greatest in statistical season a WNBA player's ever had. Whether we talk about, recovering from injury and just having a bad season, the talent wasn't close. As far as A'ja Wilson was just on a planet of her own, and then as far as talent-wise, I'm not saying chemistry, and her teammates, they just had bad seasons. What we're seeing from the Minnesota Lynx is, it can be a multitude of people. While we know who the best player is on this team, obviously the defensive player of the year in Napheesa Collier, but Kayla McBride was huge, playing 43 minutes, hit 4 threes. Courtney Williams was probably the MVP of the game, especially that fourth quarter. She had 23 points. She had a big 4-point play. The thing that is great about this team is, while they know who their best player is, and there's no question who the best player is for the Minnesota Lynx, they can win. It can be somebody different almost every night. And that can be the same thing. That can be the same. Like, you can say the same thing for the New York Liberty. I think this was a bad loss. This was a terrible loss. Again, when you're up by 18 points, there's no way that you should allow a team to come back. It just doesn't happen, or it shouldn't happen. And I don't think that we should worry. I mean, we saw, let me see. Breonna Stewart went 6 for 21. Jonquel Jones went 9 for 14. That was cool. Sabrina Nadescu, there's a reason why people were saying that the key to this series is how Sabrina Nadescu plays. I don't know if you guys pay attention to, let's just shrink the sample size. If you pay attention to this playoffs, nearly every single time Sabrina Nadescu has a bad game, it's either a very close game for the New York Liberty or they lose. The game where the Vegas Aces just ran them out the gym, Sabrina Nadescu had like 4 points. While, yes, Breonna Stewart is their best player, and they have a litany of talent on the New York Liberty, when your essentially starting guard is 8 for 26, that's not a win. And how many and 3 turnovers? That's not a winning formula. Shouts out to the ladies that cover and that are covering the WNBA, and they said it when we talk about the pregame. They were like, "Yo, Sabrina Nadescu is the key to the WNBA Finals. If the Minnesota Lynx are able to, she's the only one. Don't get me wrong, Breonna Stewart is the best player, but Sabrina Nadescu is the only one that kind of has that Steph Curry type type feel as far as when she gets hot, she starts hitting deep threes. It's like, all right, well, there's nothing we can do. Good game. And she didn't have that. So I'm not going to bury the New York Liberty, but what I will say is they are now fighting history, which doesn't stop them from obviously doing what they have to do. But the last time, I'll say it like this: the last time the winner of Game 1 did not win the WNBA Finals was in 2017. I think that was the LA Sparks. Since 2017, every single WNBA champion has won Game 1. Now, take that information what you will. I'm not going to bury the New York Liberty, but what I am going to say is that was a bad loss. Not because you lost to a team that essentially you should be better than. It's because you had them up by 18 points. And you allowed them, you gave. And on top of the worst part, and the last thing I'll say, the worst part is both teams were trying to give this game away, especially at the end of the fourth and the overtime. Whether we talk about some of the bonehead turnovers, some of the missed shots, and then, of course, you have arguably one of the greatest WNBA players in the history of the sport go and miss a free throw and then miss a game-tying layup in overtime. I don't expect Breonna Stewart to do that again, but that's what happened. So, congratulations to the Minnesota Lynx for beating the New York Liberty 95-93 in Game 1 of the WNBA Finals. There isn't a more important game. There isn't a more important series than a championship game, a championship series. There's not a more important game in a season for football than the Super Bowl. That's the one. There's not a more important game in college football than the national championship. There's not a game that you can play that is more important in basketball than the NBA Finals or the WNBA Finals. But there are games in the regular season. There are games in the playoffs that bear close, not the same, but close to the importance of the big game. And that's kind of what we saw in more ways than one on Thursday Night Football when the San Francisco 49ers played the Seattle Seahawks and essentially beat them 36-24. Now, here's why I started this with that. The only way to silence critics, the only way to dispel question marks is by producing on the field. And over the last few weeks, there has been growing question marks. There have been growing concerns about this 49ers team. On top of that, you're going into a divisional battle, the Seattle Seahawks, after losing your first two divisional games. And there isn't much that is more detrimental than going 0-3 in your division. You have six opportunities to win, to essentially win your division. And to go in it and losing half of them already is not ideal. And they're not only, now, yes, there is still a long injury report for the San Francisco 49ers. But you're playing a team in the Seattle Seahawks that have issues of their own, that is on a mean losing streak of, I think they were on a 2-game losing streak of their own. And there were starting to be question marks about this 49, not starting. There were question marks about this 49ers team. One of the biggest question marks is, is this really a Super Bowl caliber team, or is that window closed? Now, obviously, you can make your assumptions there. I say the window is closed, but to lessen the grand of this game, you just need it to look like the team that a lot of people thought was going to be a top tier, if not the best team in the NFC. And the 49ers looked all of the 49ers in this game. I will say this, though. When you have Deebo Samuels have 3 receptions for 102 yards, when you have Brock Purdy have an incredible game, I think this is the 8th time in his career where he has 3 or more touchdowns with no interceptions. When you have a rusher break out for 99 yards named Isaac Gerardo, when the offensive line dominates, when the defense looks incredible. That's the 49ers the 49ers we saw on Thursday is the 49ers that for sure should be amongst the league, the top of the conference. I don't think Brock Purdy is a bad quarterback. I don't think that the issues for the 49ers is or could be detriment. What I will say is this. One thing that losing streaks, one thing that adversity shows that a lot of people don't talk about. It shows, obviously, what you can overcome, but it also shows what your floor is. It also shows what you look like at your worst. And let me give you a perfect example. We've seen what the Baltimore Ravens look like at their worst this year. That was the Raiders game. Looking at where the Ravens are right now and how we feel about the Ravens now compared to how we feel that like the Raiders are right now, them losing to the Raiders was their floor. But even in that loss, they had multiple double-digit leads. Lamar Jackson looked good. It was more of a self-inflicted loss. Right now, I think we're seeing what the floor looks like for the Cincinnati Bengals, for the Kansas City Chiefs. They haven't looked great majority of this season, and still they're 5-0. Not saying that they're not going to lose a game, but I'm saying we've seen what they look like right now at their worst. Now that can also change. You can get more information, which changes things. They can look god awful one of these days, and that would be their essential floor. I'm saying all this to say, we've seen what the 49ers floor looks like this year. We've seen them look just incredibly awful. And we've also seen what their ceiling is. I think at their floor level, I think in fact, I'll say it like this. I think they're closer. When you look at this game, when you look at the Thursday night football game, you look at the score 36-24 and you be like, well, they won by 12. But a lot of this game was Seattle mistakes more than the San Francisco 49ers just dominating. Don't get me wrong. They had their domination. Deebo Samuels was a man amongst boys. Nick Bosa was great. Fred Warner was great. Like, they played really well. Don't get me wrong. And they had glimpses of the 49ers team that a lot of people thought was going to at least find their way back to the Super Bowl. Now, yes, I know injuries definitely play a huge part in how we're viewing the 49ers right now, but what is the floor of the 49ers? They have blown multiple double. We talk about the Ravens. The 49ers have blown double-digit leads multiple times as well. And the Seahawks were getting the ball back with like a minute and like 50 seconds. And it was at that point it was a 6-point game. After the Seahawks were getting dominated, Geno Smith threw 2 interceptions on his birthday, might I add. You have DK Metcalf going off on the sideline, talking to whoever's in the headset, taking the headset off his offensive coordinator and talking to whoever's on. Like, it did not look really good for the Seahawks, and we'll talk about them in a second. But even with all that, even with the Seahawks not playing well at all, it was like 2 minutes. They had the ball down 6. That means they could have essentially won the game, which means that it would have been another blown lead. So, obviously, that's in a different universe. That's in a different realm because it didn't happen as far as the 49ers were able to overcome. But we know what their ceiling is and we know what their floor is. Their ceiling, obviously, is the Super Bowl, at least making the Super Bowl. Right now, they're closer to their floor, but I think a lot of that is due to injury. And I will say congratulations to them because they needed this win. Like I said before, you can't go 0-3 right now in your division. And on top of that, now you have 2 teams, and the team that you would have lost to, the Seahawks, they would have been 4-2. So now you're tied with the Seahawks, but now you have the tiebreaker over them because you beat them. So congratulations to the 49ers for beating the Seahawks 36-24. And let me talk about the Seahawks for a second. I look at the Seahawks the same way I'm kind of looking at the Saints. At some point, you either have to meet expectations or you have to change them. And there's a reason why year after year people continue to lose faith in the Saints. Because they have a great roster. They have a phenomenal roster. Yet and still, they always find themselves either in a dogfight to win the division, especially when they have a better roster, or they don't meet expectations. Like yearly. The Saints are probably in the Hall of Fame for having like one of the best teams in football and almost always not hitting expectations. They have to be in the Hall of Fame. Going into this season, and the season is not over, let me say that. Being 3-3 is not a death sentence. But going into the season, What did we say about the Seahawks? We said that they had a sneaky good team. They have a sneaky good roster, especially when you talk defensively. And that's something that they haven't really had in a while. It is nowhere close to the Legion of Boom levels. But since the disbanding of the Legion of Boom, there's been huge question marks about this Seahawks team defensively. When you look now, they have, just by names, they have a really good defense. And on top of that, you still have the usual mainstays when we talk about, how good their offense can be. When we talk about DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Noah Fant, Kenneth Walker III, Geno Smith. This team is good. But it also goes, you can't turn something into something or someone they're not. I said this before, man. You can't expect Russell Westbrook to turn into a 3-point shooter this late in his career, because that's just not what he is. It's hard to break out of successful habits. Because again, what Russell Westbrook has been doing has got him an MVP. It's got him finals appearance. It's going to get him to the Hall of Fame. So to say, no, you need to change your game now, you need to adapt your game, it's going to be extremely difficult because he has not had to do that. Geno Smith is a good football player. Geno Smith is a really good quarterback. Geno Smith is not a great quarterback. Geno Smith is not the quarterback that can take you to new heights. You can maintain a really good surface with Geno Smith. But if you need someone, if you're looking for Geno Smith to be that quarterback that can be amongst the league leaders of passing, or that quarterback that can take you on a deep playoff run, that's not Geno Smith. Or at least we have not seen that in his career yet. Yes, we saw the comeback player of the year, most improved. But Geno Smith threw for 312 yards. Yet and still, he did not have a good game on his birthday at all, on all times. And when we talk about the defense, there's been multiple times this year where they just got gashed. I mean, the 49ers, the Lions, it kind of goes back to the conversation that we had about the 49ers. We know what their floor is right now, and we know what their ceiling is. I don't think we know what the Seahawks ceiling is, but we for damn sure know what their floor is. And I think the disheartening thing is their floor is much lower than the talent of this roster should be. There should be no reason why you have the ball with like 2 minutes left and you're down 6 and nobody believes that you're going to win this game. Mostly because of self-inflicted wounds, bro. Geno Smith threw 2 horrible. There's different types of interceptions. There's like the interception where it's clearly the wide receiver's fault. There's fluky interceptions where how the hell, like it got tipped or something. These 2 interceptions that Geno Smith threw was for sure his fault. And another thing, we saw 2 instances. I'm not going to blow them up, but I think that there are instances that we have to discuss. And that is Geno Smith looking at the sidelines to his coaching staff, talking about, like, what the hell are y'all doing? And then the offensive coordinator situation with DK Metcalf. There's a reason why there's essentially a hierarchy in sports. You have the owner, the GM, the head coach, the players. There's as much as it's just like regular life, bro. There's employees and there's managers, there's bosses, there's owners. This is not the first time this year where we've seen it seemed like there was a disconnect between the players and the coaching staff, or it didn't seem like everyone was on the same page. And this is also not the first time where DK Metcalf goes off on somebody. These are all the let's say characteristics of a team that just doesn't have it all together. And one thing that if history repeats itself, I don't know of a team that has won that didn't. I'm not gonna say had it all together, because obviously it's damn near impossible to have everything line up the way they're supposed to. But I don't know a team that has won the Super Bowl or even been in Super Bowl contention that doesn't have everything as close to locked up as possible. And right now, it just seems like the Seahawks it's a mess. A good team, but a mess. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but all three of the Seahawks losses look exactly the same. They getting blown out. They have a chance to come back, and they blow it. All three of their losses. So, and it was a big, I mean, it wasn't a it wasn't a season-ending loss, but it is huge losing to a divisional opponent. So, shouts out to the San Francisco 49ers for beating the Seahawks 36-24. With that, you have week 6 of the NFL, and I'm going to give you my predictions. Let's start with the Jacksonville Jaguars at Chicago. Actually, no, not at Chicago. They're going to be in London. It's just Chicago is the home team. We know the Jaguars is like the Tom Brady Patriots when they go to London, when they go overseas. They just, I don't know what it is, but they just have like a pack a punch when they go to London that makes them damn near unstoppable. And I will say that as much as we've been lamenting on the Bears and as much as we've been poo-pooing on the Bears in their start, they have a chance to go, 4-2. And again, quiet as is kept, week after week, Caleb Williams continues to improve. I think I'm taking into consideration how good the Jaguars look overseas, seeing as though I think they're undefeated overseas. But I'm also looking at the totality of this season and how bad they've looked, especially their defense. And when you have an offense that has the potential to be as explosive as the Bears, with DJ Moore, with Keenan Allen, which he continues to, work himself back into game shape, with Swift, who had a really good game last week. I think the Bears right now is just an overall better team. Now, we do know that the Jaguars, and more specifically, Trevor Lawrence can have one of those games like he did a week ago. But I think this Bears defense is really good. And like I said, offensively, the Bears have a chance they can blow the doors off of a team when you talk about the personnel that they have. And like I said, Caleb Williams continues to get better. So I'm gonna pick the Bears to beat the Jaguars. I just think right now they're a better team, and the Jaguars defensively suck. Like, it's crazy. So yeah, I got the Bears beating the Jaguars. Arizona at Green Bay. Surprisingly, Arizona's defense has been much better than advertised. They've been much better than I thought they were. And offensively, they've been, I'm not going to say much better, but when you limit Kyler Murray's turnovers, you have a decent chance on offense. Now, Green Bay, on the other hand, Jordan Love's came back from injury, 2 games ago. He was still a little rusty. I don't know what's going on with this whole Romeo Dobbs situation. He's getting suspended games for misconduct or detrimental to the team. I don't know. But I think the Green Bay Packers are just an overall better team than the Arizona Cardinals, and you're playing at home. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. I just think their defense, and on top of that, Jordan Love, even though I don't know if you're going to have Christian Watson and you do get Romeo Dobbs back, I think that's going to be very important for this team. And Josh Jacobs has been pretty good at the running back position. So I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. The Colts at Tennessee. I would say, I don't know. When I'm recording this, I don't know if Joe Flacco is going to play or not, or Anthony Richardson. But I do know that Will Levis is probably going to play. And Will Levis ain't that good. I'll be real with you. Will Levis is not that good. And I think that at this point, either Anthony Richardson or Joe Flacco, both are better than Will Levis. And Tennessee, while they do have a good defense, I'm going to go with the Colts. I just think the Colts right now, they're tapping and they're finding something that they're finding consistency. Actually, no, it's not, because you don't know. I think the Colts are a better team, honestly, than the Tennessee Titans. But I was about to say they're finding consistency at the quarterback position, which is for sure not true, because they keep double dutching between Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco due to injury. So I don't know if Anthony Richardson is going to play. If he does play, I still think that the Colts have a better shot. Oh, but they do. I don't think they have Michael Pittman, and I think that's huge. But you do have Downs and Jonathan Taylor. He's rounding back to form. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts. I just think that they're just a better team than the Titans. And on top of that, Will Levis, he's going to give you 1 or 2. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Colts. Houston at New England. Now, it was announced that Drake May is going to be starting for the New England Patriots. I've said this. People on TV have said this. I think that is the absolute worst decision that you can possibly, that the New England Patriots can possibly do, is start Drake May behind this offensive line right now. I think that obviously Drake May gives the New England Patriots a better shot to win in the long term than Jacoby Brissett. But I do think that you have a chance to completely derail and ruin his future if you play him alongside or behind an offensive line that is not good. And in all intents and purposes, the New England Patriots have one of, if not the worst, offensive line in football. People talk about Cam Newton. I know has been talking about this a lot, and a lot of conversation has been around the Bryce Young situation and how Bryce Young got to this point. And while, yes, I do think that Bryce Young played a huge part in it, it also didn't help that you're playing him behind a terrible offensive line. And we talk about the lack of development from players anymore. Their franchises have lost patience. They do not have patience when we talk about players and when we talk about allowing players to grow. And I don't understand the reasoning, because in my opinion, I'm going to pick them to lose against the Houston Texans, just like I think a lot of people are. The Houston Texans have issues of their own, but a lot of their issues, the New England Patriots have no opportunity to capitalize. The Patriots don't really have many skill positions. They're still trying to seek a wide receiver one. The running game isn't great because the offensive line is terrible. The defense isn't great. There isn't a really good unit for the New England Patriots, and I just don't understand why. If you're not going to win, I don't think you're going to win with Drake May. I don't think he gives you the best shot to win in the immediate, because this offensive line is trash. Which means that, in my opinion, you're potentially putting him in a position to hurt his current and his future. It doesn't make sense, bro. But hey, that's what they're doing. I have the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, they still need a pass rush. They still need Joe Mixon back. Their running game they just have too much on C.J. Stroud's shoulders. And with Nico Collins going on IR, that just intensifies what he needs to do, even though you do have Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz. But not having Joe Mixon is huge, and I don't think that's going to matter, bro. I don't think it's going to matter. You're playing against New England Patriots, too. They're not a good team, to be completely honest. In fact, they're in a rebuild. So I got the Houston Texans beating the Patriots. Tampa Bay at Saints. I have Tampa Bay. Don't get me wrong. I think Spencer Rattler is going to be I think he has an opportunity to be pretty good. I don't think he's going to be better than Derek Carr. And with Derek Carr being out a few games with an oblique injury, I think it's very tough for Spencer Rattler's first start to be against a divisional opponent with the defense that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have. And this Saints team, they even struggle with Derek Carr. So I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just think the Buccaneers are better. And I how many times have I said that? I think the Buccaneers. I just think that it's tough for Spencer Rattler to start your career in your first regular season. Your first game that counts is against a defense that the Bucs have. So that's going to be tough. And on top of that, the Saints, they haven't looked too good in a while. So I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ooh, the Cleveland Browns against the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a extremely important game for the Philadelphia Eagles. This is one of those games where the outcome can drastically change the makeup of this team. In all intents and purposes, the Cleveland Browns are one of the worst teams in football, mainly because of their offense. Hell, I talked about Deshaun Watson and his disconnect last episode, and it's been widely documented all season. This is one of those games where a win does nothing for you outside of puts a win on your win column. No one is going to say, oh, well, that was a great win for the Philadelphia Eagles because you beat the Cleveland Browns. You don't get praise after this win. The main thing you're going to get is you're supposed to win. This win does nothing but put a win on the win column. A loss, however, losing to a team that is reeling like the Cleveland Browns are right now can essentially change the makeup of a team. It gets coaches fired. It gets players demoted. It gets players available for trade. It gets coaches demoted. I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning because I think and you're coming off a bye week. I think they understand that they need to win this game. Because if they do not win this game, I don't think Nick Sirianni survives the week as far as being the coach. I don't think his coaching staff remain. And you're going to start looking for players to get traded. I mean, you see Devin White, he was released and he didn't play a snap. So this is a big game for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Cleveland Browns season is over, essentially. The Philadelphia Eagles have everything to play for. They cannot lose this game. So I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning. The best game of the week. The most hype game. The game that they tried to flex for Sunday Night Football. CBS wasn't going. That is Washington at Baltimore. Yo, man, this is the first time in a while where there's buzz around both DC, Maryland, Virginia, and Baltimore. Now, for people that are like, isn't Baltimore Maryland? I don't need to go over that again. You can damn near say Baltimore is his own state. But you have two top at this point, top tier quarterbacks in Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson. You have Brian Robinson with Derrick Henry. This is going to be a great game, and this is boy. It's just great to see. It's great to have going two teams so close to each other in proximity, and they're both good. There's buzz around the city, man. It really is. The thing that hurts my soul, because you guys know I am a Commanders fan. The thing that hurts my soul is Let me walk you guys through my thinking. Washington has an opportunity to exploit Baltimore's weakest unit right now, and that is their secondary. They're able to Terry McLaurin, and we know Jaden Daniels is amongst the league leaders in passing yards. And as we've seen all season, the Baltimore Ravens have struggled with premier wide receivers. They struggled with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They struggled with Rashid Rice. They struggled with Devontae Adams. And the way that he's played in his career so far, I would put Terry McLaurin in that category. And I think Washington has an advantage there. I think that's where the advantages stop for Washington. I mean, you're going up against one of the best, if not the best, pass defense in football. Washington's secondary is still a major question mark, and as we've seen, Lamar Jackson can throw the cover off that ball to Zay Flowers or Isaiah Likely. Last week, Mark Andrews had a big game. Rashad Bateman. You're going against, while Washington has a really good pass defense as well, you're going against the best rusher so far this year in Derrick Henry. Now, Washington, I will say their pass rush can be good because Baltimore still struggles a little bit offensively, especially interior. Um, Man, fuck. I'm going Washington. Washington is beating Baltimore because, like, I'm over here doing mental gymnastics for what? We got Jaden Daniels. Washington is beating Baltimore in Baltimore. We're essentially going into their trap and taking over their trap. Yeah, I got Washington beating Baltimore. What are we talking about? Jaden Daniels, bro. Let's go. L.A. Chargers at Denver. I don't know how this game is gonna go because the Denver Broncos have been better than advertised. Bo Nix has been really good. Patrick Surtain has probably turned into the best corner in football. And this Denver defense is really good. On top of that, you don't know the health of Justin Herbert and the health of this team in general, honestly. J.K. Dobbins has been pretty good for them, but I'm gonna go with and you're in Denver. I'm gonna go with the Denver Broncos. I think the Denver Broncos, especially defensively, I think their defense is the best unit that's gonna be on the field at any time. So I am gonna go with the Denver Broncos. Yeah. Pittsburgh Steelers at Raiders. Yo, this is also one of those. It's not on the scale of the Philadelphia Eagles, but the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you are really the team that your record at one point you were 3-0, if you really are that team, you beat a team like the Raiders. You don't have Devontae Adams. They just benched Gardner Minshew and started Aiden O'Connell. Like, I understand that there are issues that the Steelers have, especially offensively. Like, they kind of desperately need another wide receiver, and we still don't know if Justin Fields is that quarterback that can take you over the hump and that can essentially win you the AFC North. But this is one of those, like, if you want to call yourself a real team and you want to say, yo, we are one of those elite teams, or we are what our record says we are, you beat the Raiders, a Raiders that is reeling right now and has a plethora of issues. So I have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you're playing in a dome. Yeah, man, you got to win this game. I got Pittsburgh beating the Raiders. Detroit Lions against the Dallas Cowboys. Yo, I don't see a path where the Dallas Cowboys win this game. Obviously, you don't have Michael Parsons. You don't have DeMarcus Lawrence. Deron Bland is coming back, but, you know, the best players on this unit is obvious, or the best players on this team is obviously Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, and they're going to need to be integral. But I just don't know if the Detroit Lions are going to allow that. And on top of that, Dallas has struggled. They've been getting gashed in the run game, like every game. And you're about to go against Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. That's a running back duo that is, in all intents and purposes, the best running back duo in the league. Yeah. I don't see, and Dallas defense has struggled even with the win against the Steelers. I don't see it. If I'm wrong, obviously I'll come here next episode and say I'm wrong, but I don't see a path where Dallas beats the Detroit Lions. So I have the Lions. I don't see it. I just think the Lions are an overall better team than the Dallas Cowboys. So you have Atlanta at Carolina. I have the Atlanta Falcons. The Carolina Panthers, I have been extremely vocal of how I feel about that franchise, and how that franchise has been trash, and they've essentially been the doormats of the NFL for a minute now. And Atlanta is coming off a big win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football or last week. Atlanta's just a better team. So I have the Atlanta Falcons. Then you have the Cincinnati Bengals at New York. Almost everything I said about the Philadelphia Eagles losing to the Cleveland Browns is applicable here to the Cincinnati Bengals. You're going against a New York team that probably is not going to have Malik Neighbors, even though he be at Travis Scott concert. I was there too. Shouts out. That was an incredible concert, by the way. You know what? Side note, bro. I understand that we are looking at athletes in a certain light, in a certain realm, but these are still people. And if you're Malik Neighbors and you can't play right now because you're in concussion protocol, why can't I go to a concert? If I could work out. Let's say the concert was 3 hours. I could work out 21 hours a day, like 21 hours straight. If someone finds me going to a 3-hour concert, they're going to say something. I have no issue on Malik Neighbors, bro. He can't play. Like, what we doing? And the Travis Scott concert, in all intents and purposes, was incredible. But back to what I was saying, or back to the topic. The Cincinnati Bengals, their season is, I think their season is hanging by a thread right now, but that thread will burst if they lose to the Giants. Like, you lost, you're 1-4 right now. You would be 1-5. You'd lose to a team without their best wide receiver. Yeah. And Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, Do you lose to a Daniel Jones? No. I have the Cincinnati Bengals winning. They need to win this game. Like, it's imperative that they win this game, or heads will roll. And Monday Night Football, bro, you have the Buffalo Bills going into New York and playing the Jets. This is a must-win for the Jets. Like, as loud as this week has been with the firing of Robert Saleh, and is it Aaron Rodgers' fault? Is it not his fault? Who was blindsided? Who wasn't? You need to win this game. Like, it's on top of that, Buffalo isn't really. They're kind of going through a rough patch right now. So are you guys. You need to win this game. Like, this is a must-win for the identity of the Jets. You need to win this game. And because of that, I have the Buffalo Bills winning. The Jets haven't shown me this year that they are capable of beating a top-tier team. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been playing well. The run game has been god-awful. Again, you just fired your coach. The connection between Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson is non-existent. I have Buffalo Bills winning, which essentially would be a firestorm of content for a week with the Jets. So, just like it's been this week. But those are my week 6 predictions. Let me know what you guys think. And I'm not gonna stay on this long because obviously I'm recording this on a Friday night. And this is for tomorrow, which is Saturday. But this is probably the biggest Saturday in a while for college football. I mean, you got South Carolina at Alabama. You got the Red River rivalry. This is the first time the Red River. Oh my gosh! This is the first time the Red River rivalry is, which obviously is Texas and Oklahoma. First time both teams are in the SEC. You have Penn State at USC. You have Stanford at Notre Dame. This is a big week. Mississippi, no, they suck. Florida at Tennessee. Then you got Ole Miss and LSU. Kansas State and Colorado. Then you got the big one. You got Oregon and Ohio State. Number 2 being Ohio State. Number 3 being Oregon. I had Oregon winning the national championship. Right now, that pick is not looking the best. But you have, I don't think that a loss, I think if you get blown out, that is, for anyone, either one of these teams get blown out, that is a huge detriment to just their standings in the Big Ten. Kind of like Georgia and Alabama. Like, Georgia lost, but it didn't kill them. I don't think it might obviously affect, well, never mind, because Vanderbilt freaking beat Alabama. But this is the game. Oregon has not looked like I'm gonna say this, has looked like a playoff caliber team once this year. And Ohio State has looked like it all year. However, they haven't really played any competition up to snuff. This is the game. Obviously, I'm going to pick Oregon to win, but this is the game. This is the, if you want to, I know they beat Michigan State. Oregon did. If you want to, I'm not saying that you have to win, but you cannot get blown out. If you want to be considered an elite team, if you want to be considered a national championship caliber team, if you want to be considered amongst the top of the Big Ten, you have to win or at least compete in a game against Ohio State. And I think, and you're going into, Ohio State's coming to Eugene, Oregon. Yeah, nah. I have Oregon winning, but I think it's going to be a great game. And it is just the topping to what is essentially the biggest day in college football, not just this year, but in a while. So I'm excited. And there you have it, man. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want a Popular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, a link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. I appreciate all of you guys. If you like the content, tell a friend, tell a friend, to tell a friend to subscribe. It definitely means a lot. Also, please subscribe to please follow the DSPs, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to this luxurious voice of mine. Please follow, please subscribe. It means so much to me. Also, please follow the socials. Follow Instagram, follow TikTok. I post pretty much daily. That's where you can get reels. That's where we can get stories. We can go back and forth. You keep it respectful. I don't mind going back and forth with you. It just means that you're listening to me and that you are passionate. So I don't mind it. Please follow the socials. Until next time, much love.